Chapter 17. My First Assignment. I received my first assignment as a young assistant in Ypsilanti, Michigan. Father Bill Mooney was pastor, and the first assistant was Father Jerry Krig. I was automatically second assistant. Rank was everything in those days. I enjoyed the two priests immensely. Father Mooney was one of the funniest men I have ever met in my life. He was funny to look at. I mean that as a compliment. He was pudgy and truly comical. It would not be considered funny if someone always had a cigarette in the mouth, but Father Mooney never took the cigarette out of his mouth, even when he was speaking. As he spoke, the ashes were continually falling down the front of his suit. Watching the ashes trickle down was humorous enough. He was also a genius at making you laugh with an unlimited supply of jokes. It was nearly impossible to keep a straight face listening to him even before he finished a joke. What upset me was that I would tell him a joke. He hardly cracked a smile. The next day he would actually tell me my own joke, and he would have me genuinely laughing. At my own joke, no less. One day I entered his office and told him that I had a problem. I told him that Toki wine was too strong for me. I explained how the congregation started to look a little blurry by the time I got to my second Mass. This was the problem. In 1956, Catholics were not permitted to eat or drink anything, not even water after midnight if we intended to receive communion the next day. Naturally, I was a second assistant on the bottom rung, so to speak. I was given the last two Masses. That meant that I would be saying the 10 o'clock and the 12 noon Masses. Having an empty stomach and drinking wine at both Masses had a real effect on me. I told Pastor about it. He said, "Tell me exactly what you do at the offertory of the Mass when you pour the wine into your chalice." "I simply pour the wine in the chalice till I empty the cruet," I said. "Well, no wonder, you darn fool. You don't have to drink it all," he explained, laughing. From then on, I poured a very small amount in the chalice. The people no longer looked blurry. I really liked being in Ypsilanti. The people were warm and cooperative, and I was beginning to feel a new ministry for me at Eastern Michigan University, which was located in the parish. I had some very enlightening discussions with the college students, and I was hoping to become their chaplain. But that was not to be. After only 3 months, everything changed. I received a letter from the Archbishop's office transferring me to the inner city of Detroit. Within a week, St. Boniface was to be my new home. It was situated next to Tiger Stadium on the lower west side of the city. It seemed that the assistant pastor collapsed one day through bad health and stress. They found him on the floor. He needed a rest and a change, so they swapped us. I went to St. Boniface in Detroit, and he went to St. John's Church in Ypsilanti. They also wanted me to work with a community of Hispanics in the area. I was amazed how quickly our lives could be changed around, like pawns on a chessboard. From the moment I began working among the Hispanic people, I always felt a sense of belonging. However, my ministry was to all the people of St. Boniface, and I did not avoid any group in the parish. I loved visiting the children in school, working closely with the Maltese and Hispanics, and I reached out to the rest of the parish with no less zeal. My first job was getting along with the pastor. He was a tough guy to live with. He was the type of person who was continually checking up on you and taking notes. He would write down every mistake you made, from leaving the newspaper in the wrong place to forgetting lights on, not closing a door, and countless other insignificant things. At the end of the day, just before supper, we would be sitting down, relaxing. I use that word loosely. Father Joe inevitably would take out his famous list of errors and read them off one by one. I always felt as if he were examining my conscience instead of his. I was far from perfect, but overlooking a couple of simple things or maybe a few minor mistakes was not going to change the parish or the world. But this was a daily ritual. I began to wonder if perhaps the assistant pastor before me was overcome more by the stressful life living under these conditions than because of poor health. After several weeks of this daily pattern, he was starting to get on my nerves. I decided to do something about it. Two can play that game. I carefully watched him for the next few days, making a mental note of any slip-ups on his part. By the end of the week, I got what I was looking for. While we were sitting in the living room waiting for supper, he began his usual tirade against carelessness. True to form, he took out his list of errors and started to read each error very carefully and clearly. He wanted to make sure I understood the charges. I listened attentively. When he finished, I then said, "I have something to share with you also." He looked at me quizzically as I pulled out a slip of paper from inside my suit coat. It was the last thing in the world he expected. I read off his misdemeanors, such as leaving the safe in church open one day. Naturally, I emphasized how dangerous that was because we had all the sacred vessels kept there. It would be tragic if someone stole them because of his carelessness. A basement light was left on, and he was the last one to be down there. He did not lock the back door twice this week. And there were several other items. When I finished, I said, "When you get your act together, I'll take care of mine. Fair enough?" He got up off the couch and started walking in my direction. He said, "Get up." I thought he was going to try to deck me. I was ready to duck. Instead, he said, "Now you're a real man. I like you." And he shook my hand warmly. From that day on, we became the best of friends. No more lists, no more complaints or tirades. From that time on, we worked well together and had a very productive ministry. He didn't even mind when I went to the baseball or football games at Tiger Stadium, which was only a couple of blocks away. If any parishioners complained about me spending too much time there, I told them I was taking a census of the parish. A couple of people actually believed me. After all, Tiger Stadium was definitely within our parish boundaries. The truth, of course, was that I didn't want to miss a Lions game during the incredible championship year of Bobby Lane and Joe Schmidt. Chapter 18. A Tragic Fire, the Death of a Heroic Priest. A couple of years later, we had a priest staying with us. There was a lot of room. The parish house had at least 5 bedrooms with a private bath. Father Adam Joseph came to us from Krakow, Poland. He had been a professor at a university in Krakow and was also a parish priest. He was not afraid to get in the pulpit and speak openly against the Nazis. Soldiers came in one day during Mass and took him to a concentration camp, where he was ill-treated and tortured. At one point, he was chosen for experimental surgery on his stomach without anesthesia. The Nazi doctors wanted to see how much pain a human being could endure before losing consciousness. They removed a portion of his stomach. My biggest surprise was that he was alive to talk about it. After 2 years in the concentration camp, they sent him back to his church. After a few months, he began to criticize the Nazi regime again. The parishioners knew that this time they would kill him outright or torture him to death. Some of his devoted parishioners managed to take him almost by force to a train leaving for Switzerland. It was not easy for them to convince him to leave the country, but they did succeed. They dressed him like a woman, wearing the popular babushka. One of them accompanied him to safety. From there, he made his way to America. Another surprise was that his English was almost perfect. When he came to St. Boniface parish looking for a place to live, he was already teaching theology at the University of Detroit. How he negotiated that position, I am not sure. The pastor, Father Joe Bruck, like many Michiganders, was accustomed to go down to Florida for a post-Christmas vacation. While he was there in 1958, I was witness to a terrible tragedy. I had gone to bed one evening only to have a bad dream that there was a fire, and I was smelling smoke. The scent was becoming stronger every moment. Then I realized I was awake and still smelling smoke. I jumped out of bed and saw that the smoke was coming from the door across the hall. That's where Father Joseph's room was located. I quickly opened the door, and what I saw was absolutely unbelievable. The door to the Polish priest's room was wide open. The entire room was on fire, and in the middle of the room was Father Adam Joseph, standing there burning to death right in front of me. He mumbled, completely dispirited, "Please help me." As he fell to the floor, either dead or dying, I tried desperately to enter the room, but I couldn't. The door was completely surrounded by fire. Just then, a fireman came up to me and told me to get downstairs immediately. The smoke, starting at the ceiling, was coming down fast. It was just above my head when I made for the stairs. The fireman had a lot of equipment on, including an oxygen mask, but he could not get in the room either. He called for some fire extinguishers as I made my way down the stairs. Someone had seen the fire from outside the building and called the fire department. They got there quickly. The parish house, as I said, was very large. On the other side of the house lived two elderly ladies. One was the cook and the other the housekeeper. I went up the back stairs only once when I first came to St. Bonaventure, so I didn't know that area very well. When I came downstairs during the fire, I did not see either of them. I told the fireman on the first floor that there were two ladies upstairs on the other side of the house. He said that there wasn't anyone up there. He was beginning to patronize me. "Father, why don't you just drink a little coffee here and relax for a moment? Everything is being taken care of." I heard enough. I grabbed a napkin off the table, placed it over my nose, and dashed upstairs. One of the firemen shouted at me to come back. He yelled loudly, "There is no one up there! Come on down!" I paid no attention to him. On the second floor, the smoke was already about 3 feet above the floor, causing total darkness in the rooms. I was on my hands and knees. I made my way to where I thought one of the beds was. I was right. There was somebody still in bed. I shook her, and she awakened, getting out of bed immediately. That was the housekeeper. I asked where the bed of the cook was, but this was no time for directions. She told me to hold on to her, and she would take me there. The smoke was about bed level. If the cook inhaled it, she would surely die in her sleep of asphyxiation. We got there just in time. We awakened her and dragged her out of bed at the same time. The smoke was not more than 2 feet above the floor. We were crawling as fast as we could toward the only flight of stairs on that side of the house. We were now only a few feet away from the top of the stairs when a quick decision had to be made. I couldn't hold my breath any longer. I took a breath, inhaling smoke. I could not exhale. I was literally passing out. I was being asphyxiated. In that split second, before losing consciousness, I let go of the housekeeper's hand and threw my body in what I hoped was the direction of the stairs. Nothing was visible, and I was right. My body came tumbling down the stairs. The fall woke me up. Just behind me came the housekeeper, her body falling down right behind me. Gravity was working in our favor. We coughed a bit, but were out of serious danger. They were all happy to see us both alive, but we didn't waste a moment telling the firemen that there was still one of the ladies up there. Protected with an oxygen mask, one of them ran up the stairs to get her. We presumed she was lying on the floor near the stairs. He came down empty-handed. We were shocked that he did not save her. Just then, someone came in the back door telling the firemen to rescue a lady up on the terrace of the second floor. What a smart move she made. The cook was accustomed to sitting out on the terrace quite frequently in good weather. She knew exactly where the doorknob was, and she made a quick exit instead of heading for the stairs. She was saved after all. Father Adam Joseph was rushed to the hospital. He never regained consciousness. He died in the hospital. The cause? Asphyxiation from the fumes. His body was burned badly after he fell unconscious to the floor. My heart went out to him. Imagine surviving the terror and torture of a Nazi concentration camp and then dying in a peaceful setting where there was no war, no attack, no violence, only faulty wiring, which triggered a sudden fire, according to the fire inspector's report. The ladies and I were being treated for any effects of minor asphyxiation. We stayed with Father Joseph as long as we could. By the time we got back from the hospital, it was almost dawn. Since the parish house was considered unsafe until the entire wiring system was replaced, the ladies made provisions to stay with relatives until further notice. Besides the smell of smoke pervading the whole house, I knew it was late, but I did not realize just how late it was. The ladies and I were up until dawn, feeling weak and totally exhausted. We were fully aware that we barely escaped the jaws of death. The fire could have taken our lives as well, but strangely enough, fear set in only after the whole ordeal was over. About 8 a.m., I received a phone call from one of the bishops. He was not kind in his choice of words to me. "Do we have to read about the fire in the newspaper? Why didn't you call us?" "I nearly died in the fire, and I am feeling very weak," I said. "You are supposed to report any such damage immediately. You know better than that." He was actually reprimanding me. "I nearly died in the fire," I repeated more loudly. "You were not following procedure. We don't want to be the last ones to hear about a fire," he continued. "I was asphyxiated and nearly died," I shouted. Now I was angry. "Are you deaf? I am lucky to be alive. What do I care whether you hear about it or not? Are you listening, or shall I hang up?" I finally got his attention. "Oh, are you all right? I'm sorry. I didn't realize it was that serious." "It was serious enough to take Father Adam Joseph's life," I reminded him. We were now communicating. He recommended that I stay in a house we owned that was inhabited by the maintenance man and his family. There was one unoccupied bedroom. He said if it was satisfactory, I could stay there until the rectory was completely repaired, wiring and all. If I did not like staying with that family, he would make other arrangements. It was fine. He told me to call the pastor in Florida, inform him of what happened, and tell him to stay there until the rectory was ready. The archdiocese was aware of the pastor's poor health and heart condition. For almost a month, I kept having nightmares. I would wake up perspiring and reliving the same scene. Father Adam Joseph is standing in the midst of flames and asking for my help. Night after night, I could see the pitiful look on his face when he knew the end had come and the fire would consume his very life. After about a month, the nightmares tapered off until I no longer had them. I was ready to see a psychiatrist if they had continued. A few months after the fire, Father Bruck was transferred to St. Joseph Church in Trenton, Michigan. It was a sad parting. He treated me more as a co-worker than as an assistant. I know there was a tear in his eye because he could not look at me face to face when I was making my farewell. Thank you for listening, and please join us every Sunday at 3 o'clock for our watch party as we premiere the next chapters of Father J's book.